Today I will tell you how to turn useless, even harmful cereals into a useful product. We will talk about polished white rice, that is, what we most often use. There is, of course, both unpolished rice and the so-called wild rice. There are brown, red, black and so on. But all this is quite expensive and is not widely used by an ordinary person, unlike ordinary rice. But the trouble is that if we look at the composition of ordinary ground rice, we will see that this is a fairly high-calorie cereal, about 340 kilocalories. Well, depending on the variety, these figures may fluctuate a little. But if we look even further, we will see that this is 78% carbohydrates. And let me remind you that carbohydrates, these are just such chemical compounds that increase our blood sugar. A pure carbohydrate, for example, is sugar. 100 grams of sugar are 100% carbohydrates. They give us 400 calories. And, accordingly, rice provides 78% of carbohydrates, that is, it is not far from sugar. Another thing is that we have sucrose in sugar. It is absorbed very quickly from the gastrointestinal tract and gives us peaks of glucose in the blood, but rice contains starch, that is, in principle, this compound is more difficult to digest, but nevertheless starch also gives an increase in blood glucose levels. And, accordingly, people who eat rice do not receive anything other than this starch. But there's still 6.7% protein in there. But protein is vegetable, defective, that is, it will not replace everything that is necessary for us to obtain essential amino acids. If you look further, there are some trace elements there. For example, there are practically none, except for some insignificant amounts of iron. And finally, the most important thing that is missing in rice and is in other types of cereals, for example, in oatmeal or buckwheat, or in lentils, is that there are no vegetable fibers, that is, fiber. Fiber is plant fibers that are not digested by our body and may or may not be digested by bacteria. And, accordingly, the benefits of fiber are huge. That is, it is both the promotion of food masses through the gastrointestinal tract on the one hand, and the regulation of appetite. On the other hand, it is a substrate, that is, food for our beneficial microflora. So rice simply does not have such properties. Of course, I do not dispute that ground white rice can be a regular diet dish. It can really be used in those people who have allergic reactions or in people who have undergone some kind of surgery or infection, whose gastrointestinal tract does not work well, who need to gain weight quickly. But in general, for an ordinary more or less healthy person, polished rice is not a good choice. But it's not that bad. We can change things for the better. And to do this, you just need to cook the rice, let it cool at room temperature, and then put it in the refrigerator. Somewhere in the refrigerator we have a temperature from 4 to +8 degrees. And, accordingly, after keeping rice in the refrigerator for more than 12 hours, taking it out, well, you can warm it up there. You cannot warm it up, by the way, then we get a completely different starch structure in it. That is, if initially it was ordinary starch, which was absorbed very quickly in our gastrointestinal tract and, accordingly, nothing reached the microflora there, then after this rice stood in the refrigerator, the starch was transformed and it became resistant. Here is such a group of so-called resistant starches, which are not only in rice, by the way, and in chilled potatoes, and in green bananas. This group is equivalent to fiber in its beneficial properties. That is, firstly, resistant starches are more difficult to absorb in the gastrointestinal tract. They can also perform a formative function and can also promote the promotion of food through the gastrointestinal tract. But most importantly, they contribute to the growth of our good bacterial microflora in the intestine. And a good microflora means good immunity, good mental abilities, strong bones, good mood, almost all aspects of our health, including insulin resistance, including overweight. That is, if a person's intestinal microflora works well, then this solves all his health problems in many ways. And so we can turn a useless or even harmful product into a fairly useful one in such a simple way. In addition, if we still eat rice not empty, but with vegetables, with salads with some, well, with any vegetables that you like, then we will only add benefits. And of course, you can eat natural, unpolished rice, and there are different exotic rice, but we can also improve it if we take it, cook it, then cool it and then put it back into business. In this simple and affordable way we can improve our health. Thanks a lot to all of you for your attention.